Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Utility Sports Plus, and we're so excited for NFL Week 13 predictions and pick'em. We're continuing our year-long series where we cover the NFL and everything that you need to know about this week's game. So if you guys are excited, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to this channel. We're growing and growing and growing. You guys are a huge reason why. So shout out to everyone watching. Really do appreciate you guys. We read every single comment. Austin loves seeing what you guys have to say. We want to hear your picks this week as well. Let us know how you're kind of thinking about this NFL season. Has it been a little bit different than you were expecting? Just kind of spill some of those thoughts into the comment section. Austin, let's jump into it here. Now, looking at our pick'em records, and guys, Austin's been really quiet the last couple of weeks. He was starting to get nervous, 4 or 5 game spread. Well, look at that. It's ballooned back up to 9 games. And to be honest, you might think, wow, that Sheldon guy seems stupid. This is the best I'll ever do. Being this close to Austin is an absolute win for me. When you're, through 179 games this year, when I have 108 right, I feel like I'm absolutely killing it. Now, I know you guys probably a little bit closer to that 117 mark. That's really the sign of an elite pick'em player. So, Austin, how does it feel to be kind of in that elite or maybe even GOAT tier?
This is a long season, and I'm not even close to that. I'm in the bottom 10%, I think. But I think you're just being humble about your pick 'em here. It's going to turn around.
Yeah, so the guy who says he's in the bottom 10% tells the guy below him that he's just being humble. Take that for what you will, guys. Let's jump into it now. We don't have time to waste. We got to go into those bye week teams. And, well, the bye weeks come for some teams that really need it this week. One of them being the Minnesota Vikings. Austin, you and I were subjected to watching them lose to the Chicago Bears on Monday Night Football in person. We were at US Bank Stadium. And it's never good when you lose to a team that could only muster 4 field goals. Look, the Bears are on this list too. They need that bye week. They can't really do anything either. Their offense is really non-existent. Fields had 2 more fumbles in that game. Listen, the Vikings and Bears are both bad teams. Vikings at 6-6, Bears at 4-8. Just really not playing for a lot at this point of the year. The Giants actually playing pretty well since the Daniel Jones injury. They're on a 2-game win streak. The Raiders are on here. Need I say more? The Ravens. Well, look at that team. 9-3. They're playing great football. And then time out 6-6. I was just harping on how bad the Vikings have been this year, especially on a 2-game losing streak. The Bills, wow, 6-6 record. They've been extremely disappointing this year with all of the high hopes. Hopefully these 6 teams can use the bye week to their advantage. They have a late bye, gives them kind of an advantage down the stretch of the season. We'll see how they look to turn the table here going forward. Austin, let's jump into our first game of the week. And it's a fun one. The Seattle Seahawks head into Dallas to take on the Cowboys. And the Cowboys, listen, they've been a very good team this season, especially at home. Actually undefeated this year, 5-0 at Jerry's Palace. Austin, why will they continue to win and move to 6-0 at home this year?
I think Dak Prescott has a lot to do with it. He's been phenomenal this year, getting the ball out on time, on target. Him and CeeDee Lamb have established the best connection that they have throughout their entire duration together. They are looking awesome offensively. Defensively, they are game wreckers. This is all kind of coming together nicely for Dallas. I think they're going to be peaking at the right time, hopefully, when it comes postseason playoff appearance. But, Seattle, it's a tough task to beat Dallas at this point, this stage in the game. I think they're going to be faced with a ton of pressure. Therefore, it's probably not going to yield the best results for the Seahawks. They're going to have to run the football effectively to try to counter that and keep the Cowboys off balance. But at the end of the day, I still see the Cowboys prevailing.
At 6-5, the Seahawks have been kind of an interesting team this season. They actually have a negative 20 point differential on the year for themselves, but still a winning record. They're on a 2-game losing skid right now, and they're 2 games back of the 49ers in the NFC West. So a loss this week would almost bury the hatchet for them this season, it feels like, especially if the Niners do go on to win. So this is a big game for Seattle. I'm expecting them to get up for this one, although Dallas, like you said, just a little bit too much to handle here at home. Let's jump into our next one, and that is going to come on Sunday, the Sunday slate of games. And wow, 2 teams we're super stoked here for, Austin. The 2-9 New England Patriots, who are really more worried about draft positioning at this point than they are playoff football. And that's something we're used to saying for the New England Patriots this time of year in our lifetimes. They've just been, accustomed to dominating throughout the regular season. That is not the case anymore. At 2-9, Bailey Zappi's been in and out for them, replacing Mac Jones. It's just kind of a dumpster fire right now for the New England Patriots. And on the other hand, the Chargers haven't been much better. I think coming into the year, if you would have told us that they'd be last in the AFC West with a 4-7 record behind the Broncos and Raiders. Well, first of all, we'd probably be a little surprised by that. We'd be also more surprised that Staley's still the head coach of the team. Austin, with the head coaching changes, do you expect Staley to be gone long term from the Chargers? And then who wins this game, and why'd you go with LA here?
I think when you look at Brandon Staley, his time is over. I think it's completely shot. This tenure with the Chargers has been a pure disaster extending back to last postseason. But at the end of the day here, I still think the Chargers can get the job done with how bad New England's been offensively. Ramondre Stevenson has been a bright spot for them, but outside of that, the quarterback play has not. Therefore, going to dictate the entire game. The Chargers, once again, I think they are a talented offense, but defensively, they have a lot of things to figure out. And, they are just not living up to the potential that they can. They have a phenomenal roster, but is not countering and really leading to those wins.
Yeah, the Patriots have the longest losing streak in the NFL, tied with the Panthers on a 4-game losing skid. The Chargers not much better on a 3-game losing streak themselves. So these two teams both looking for a win. We'll see who ultimately gets the job done on Sunday. Jumping into our next one here, we see a battle between the Detroit Lions and the New Orleans Saints. Austin, every time I feel like I instill even more confidence in the Lions. Last week, specifically in their Thanksgiving matchup, I was super confident that they would get the job done against a Packers team that has been struggling this year. That did not happen. They ended up actually losing to the Packers on Thanksgiving, but they have had a long time here to kind of regroup, prepare for this game against the Saints. And I just have a lot more confidence in Detroit than I do in New Orleans. Why do you have the Saints losing here, Austin, to the Lions in this matchup?
You're going up against the second best offense in the NFL in terms of yardage gain with the Detroit Lions, a team that knows how to move the ball through the air as well as on the ground, one of the better play action teams that you'll come across. They have playmakers across the board, the receiver position, running back, tight end. It doesn't matter. They can hurt you in a lot of different ways. They have a nice, consistent offensive line that can keep Goff upright. And to me, New Orleans just does not pack enough punch. In this situation, they've struggled mightily all year. It's been a true testament to the poor coaching, in my opinion, of Dennis Allen, who I also expect to be on the potential hot seat moving into the latter part of the year.
Yeah, we're going to see a lot of turnover this year in terms of the head coaching spot. Now, a lot of people are going to say, hey, look, the Saints are at home. I don't really think that matters here. The Saints are just 2-2 at home this season, and the Lions come in 4-1 on the road. So I think the advantage still lies with Detroit, even on the road this week. Let's jump now into our next game. And, well, Austin, it's weird here. We got the Atlanta Falcons, who are leading the NFC South currently, 5-6 record. I wouldn't say they've been great, but they've been right around that 500 mark, like I've said all year long. And Austin, your team that you kind of came into the year hyping up. I'm a Jets fan. You were saying, oh, the Jets are going to be so good. You picked them about as many times as I have, even less actually, which is interesting. Interesting. I have to point that out every single week. Austin, the Falcons here, look, 5-6 versus 4-7. Why do the Falcons get this game done in New Jersey?
I think when you consider how things have gone offensively for the Jets, it's a pretty clear and obvious idea that they're going to struggle. The quarterback position is a complete disaster. I thought New England was in a bad spot, but New York seemingly is in a worse spot in that regard. You're not going to win a lot of football games that way. Your defense is going to be the only way that you can really control tempo, control field position. And to me, at the end of the day, this offense isn't good enough to get it done. Atlanta, who has been somewhat surprising defensively this year, I think offers kind of an interesting challenge for this Jets offense. So overall, I don't have a ton of confidence in either team, but to me, I think that the Atlanta Falcons are going to remain victorious here, even though they have to go on the road.
Yeah, Tim Boyle's been horrendous. The Jets have not been good. At 4-7, they're also on a 4-game losing skid right now. This team, Austin, I think the thing I'm most interested in is your NFL top 100 you come out with next year, because I swear to God, if Aaron Rodgers isn't number one on that list for you, depending on how we went from Super Bowl contender to, I don't know, top 5 pick hopeful. I'm excited to see where you have Rodgers ranked there, because I think Mrs. Ryan Brons going to be a big turning stone here for the Jets going into next season if he does come back healthy in the future. Let's jump forward now into our next game, and it's the Arizona Cardinals heading into the Pittsburgh Steelers. And listen, the 2-10 Cardinals face the worst 7-4 team of all time. The Steelers, Austin, you highlighted them before the year on this channel, saying, look, this team's going to win, a good number of games, and they've backed you up on that. They haven't looked pretty in the process of doing that, but it's just Mike Tomlin. To think that people wanted him fired is ridiculous. He just wins football games. As a New York Jets fan, I can tell you Mike Tomlin has more wins in the last 5 years than the Jets seemingly do in franchise history. Listen, the Steelers are just really well coached. They're going to win this football game. They're significantly better than the Cardinals, both on paper and on the field. And I think because of that, they walk out pretty handedly here. Austin, what have you seen from Pittsburgh this season that'll give them the edge in this matchup?
I think the big difference has been the pre and post Matt Canada. When you look at what's happened with them since the change at offensive coordinator, which is a sample size of one game, they really opened it up offensively. We saw a lot of plays, deep down the field, extending beyond 15 yards through total air yardage, which is not something we had seen prior to that. But now it's pretty exciting. The run game looked better. Throwing the ball, they looked better. This was a team that looked like they actually had their act together offensively for the first time, truly all season. And I think it's going to be a product here of Kenny Pickett having to open it up, and this might lead to a turnover or two. However, that's been, the same issue anyway, even with them playing as conservative as they have. This is a great opportunity for Pittsburgh to really solidify themselves in that playoff race. And, what better team to do it than, against the Cardinals?
Yeah, I think one thing to point out here in this one too is kind of the early returns on Kyler Murray coming back from injury. Now, this past week, he threw the ball 45 times, only one touchdown, 256 yards through the air. So he hasn't been magnificent. And I also think one thing to point out here too, the Cardinals, just recent weeks, they haven't been able to really run the football too much. Michael Carter, 4 carries for 19 yards was kind of the highlight for them. James Conner, 6 carries for 27. Just really not consistent, ground push for them. And they're just not in positions to run the ball a ton anyway with how quickly they've been getting down in games. So I think the Steelers, when you're facing a one-dimensional team, which I'm expecting the Cardinals to be again this week, the Steelers just easily win that matchup, I think 9 out of 10 times. Let's jump now into our next game here. And it's some really, really fun teams here in the AFC South. Teams that are, vying to not be last in the division. The Colts at 6-5. What a feel-good story they've been this year. They're actually second right now, but obviously the Texans right there on their tails, and the Titans 4-7. Don't look now, but this team might end up winning 6 or 7 games this season. This is kind of a really great year for them based on the way I was expecting them to come into the year, where I thought they'd be like maybe a 5-win team all season. They're pushing to maybe 6 or 7. We'll see. I think the Colts win this game handedly. They're just the better football team. The Titans have mustered 185 points this year, which if you want kind of a comparison, that's what Matt Canada and the Steelers have essentially scored this year as well. The Titans just don't move the ball. I know people are going to say, oh, Tannehill, whatever. Okay, listen, the team's not that good. This is what happens when you have a whole bunch of old players at skill positions. They're just not a good football team. The Colts win this game pretty handedly. Austin, is there anything to be hopeful here for Tennessee?
Well, there was any hope that Tennessee had. You shot that down, and the Tennessee fans are going to be very happy with you. And they have been all season via comment section. But when you look at the Indianapolis Colts here, this is one of those true tests, having to go on the road, seemingly a trap game against a Tennessee team that they should beat. But historically, Mike Vrabel has been pretty good at home. But this is not the same Titans team that we've seen over the last couple of seasons. They're old, they're slower, they're just not that same level that they had been. I think the Indianapolis Colts have to run the football effectively. Now that's going to be a little bit more difficult with the Jonathan Taylor injury, per usual. They're going to rely heavily on Zach Moss this week. Expect that to be a heavy dosage against this Titans front, who actually, can defend the run. So I think that is something to watch.
Yeah, Zach Moss has been a real bright spot. Listen, last week, 8 carries for 55 yards. That's nearly 7 yards per carry. Obviously, Taylor is such a huge part of the Colts, franchise and their identity. But without him, I still think Moss, who's been a real bright spot since the trade they made with Buffalo last season, I think he's going to handle the load for them. And I still think that they should be favored in this game, even on the road against a divisional opponent. Let's jump into our next matchup here. The Miami Dolphins head into DC to take on the Commanders. And Austin, the Dolphins have just been so good and consistent this year. 5-0 at home. Now, listen, they've only been 3-3 on the road, but I think this is a chance for them to get above 500 in road games. With an 8-3 record, they've scored nearly 340 points this season. This is kind of the combination of a smart offensive mind in McDaniel and a lot of speed on the field at all times. How impressed have you been with them this season, and why do they beat Washington here?
They've kind of created a Kansas City blueprint in a way of how they've constructed their roster. but they've added more elements of speed at other key positions, which has been huge. You look at the running back position, there is so much speed across the board, and how to be able to run these guys down is beyond me. But they've created such a unique offensive identity that is super explosive. They score at a high rate. They don't turn over the ball. This is the team that you want to model your offense after, surprisingly, with Tua being the quarterback. At the end of the day, I think it's going to be way too much for Washington's defense to handle, considering that they've traded, two of their top defensive players during the course of the season, therefore making it a lot more difficult to get after Tua and create havoc. Washington is still a team that, can be somewhat competitive on defense, but, it just has not yielded those results so far this season.
Yeah, Tua's been really good for Miami this year, nearly completing 70% of his passes, 3,200 passing yards this year, to go along with 22 touchdowns. Now, he does have 10 interceptions. You'd like to see that number be a little bit lower, but it's good for 103.7 rating. So ultimately, Tua's been fantastic this year for Miami. That's kind of the product of putting elite playmakers around him with a really smart offensive mind, like we've talked about. Miami is just the blueprint right now in the NFL for really great offensive football, and I think they're going to continue rolling, and they're a real threat with the JPP signing now to be a team in the playoffs that could really make some noise this season. Let's jump forward now into our next matchup, and the Denver Broncos head into Houston to take on the Texans. And listen, the Broncos are playing really great football. In fact, they're on a 5-game winning streak right now. And they're coming off of a situation here with a 17-point win over the Browns that you have to look at them and say, is this Broncos team legit? Now, it took Sean Payton some time for the Broncos to really find their footing, but it seems like they found that. Austin, the Texans, though, man, what great early returns from CJ Stroud, the number 2 overall pick. Obviously, Will Anderson's been a big bright spot for Houston as well. And when they traded their pick last year, there was a little bit of murmuring of, oh my gosh, could they have possibly sent a top 5 pick out the door in that trade? It doesn't look that way. The Texans 6-5, they've just been fantastic this year. We've got a really good battle here, Austin. Why did you go with the Houston Texans here against Denver?
I think at some point in time, we are going to see Denver's, hot streak cool down. And I think they are susceptible to that because on defense, they've actually been pretty turnover dependent, I guess is probably the best way to put it. They are opportunistic. Once again, that has been the theme for them this season, getting the big plays, getting the big turnover. Sometimes that doesn't carry over on a week to week basis, which has happened for them. Maybe I'm wrong in that regard, but sometimes I like to run the numbers here. I just think that Houston right now, honestly, at home should be the favorite in order to, move forward with this. You have to look at CJ Stroud as being that guy. I mean, you look at him against Jacksonville, had a very good game. They're a 58-yard field goal away from this maybe being a different conversation for people, but I think there's going to be a lot of people that it's going to be kind of fun and sexy for them to take Denver on the road. But to me, I think me and you are staying grounded with this one and trying to use a little bit more logic. There's going to be a lot of angry Denver fans saying we're going to wipe the floor with the Texans. This Texans team is no joke, as we've came to find out.
Yeah, the Texans are just really good, and at home, I'm a believer in what they're doing. Tank Dell has just been really consistent this year for the Houston Texans. His relationship, obviously, with CJ Stroud is probably a big reason why he's on the field as often as he is, and how productive he's been is just the confidence those two guys have in each other. And I think with Russell Wilson for the Broncos specifically, there's been a little bit more hype around him lately because he hasn't been turning over the football. I do just want to remind people this past week in 22 attempts, he threw for 134 yards. That's about 6 yards or so per attempt, which is not great. Did have a touchdown, no interceptions. He also had 11 carries in that game for 34 yards. So, while people are saying, oh, is Russell Wilson back? Like, the numbers maybe look better in terms of completion percentage and not turning over the football. This isn't the Russell Wilson we were accustomed to seeing 3, 4, 5 years ago. And I just don't believe that we're going to get to see that version of Russell Wilson consistently again. And because of that, I think Houston has a huge advantage at the quarterback spot. And that's the most important position on the field. And I think Houston's the safe bet here in this game. Now into our next matchup, we see the Carolina Panthers, who made headlines this week, fired Frank Reich. Austin at 1-10. Clearly, he wasn't getting the job done. But my question to you is, who will get the job done for Carolina? And is there really a market for this position? Now, obviously, NFL head coaching spot seems like an attractive job. Nonetheless, there's only 32 of those positions in the entire world. But at 1-10, they don't own their first round pick this year. Are coaches going to be lining up for this spot, Austin?
I think I don't know if this is going to be the top choice of the available openings, but what I will say to me I have not even heard any reporting on this, but I think that Ben Johnson will actually be the head coach of the Panthers next year. with the idea that he has done so well with the Detroit offense and has made them elite in 2 consecutive years, with Jared Goff being that guy. I think that this is a formula for him to go in and try to develop Bryce Young. That's my bold prediction. But when it comes to this game, a lot of times when you have a team coming off of a firing, they generally win. We had seen that with the Raiders earlier this year. This could be the product of that. But to me, I just like Tampa Bay a lot more at home. I think they have a lot more weapons, more options, some potential more big play strikes from them that they can kind of garnish and try to jump out to an early lead. But to me, with them at home, it's too hard to shy away from it, considering what we've seen from the Panthers so far this year.
Yeah, I'll be completely honest here. I'm not picking the Buccaneers because I love them. Even if you go back to week 1, week 2, when the Bucs were playing well, I was like, let's maybe slow down on this team a little bit. This is more so the Panthers are not very good at football. Coming into the year, they were the team that I thought was going to finish last in the entire NFL, and I was super concerned for them as soon as they traded everything that they did to get the number 1 pick, especially in a multiple QB draft. Let's say maybe they moved up to number 3 or number 4, gave up a little bit less to do so perhaps, and then maybe just drafted Anthony Richardson. I feel like maybe that would have been a better pathway for them, honestly. But I think the Panthers are an interesting team going forward. This year is going to hurt, especially if they do send the number 1 overall pick out the door. So we'll have to keep our eyes on that. Make sure to check out some of Austin's mock drafts on the channel. Austin, let's get into our next one here now. We see a battle here between the Cleveland Browns and the Los Angeles Rams. And listen, the Browns here, no Deshaun Watson, no good. They only scored 12 points this past week against the Broncos. DTR threw for 134 yards. We actually got to see Phillip Walker in that one as well. He threw for 56 yards. Wasn't a great situation. DTR completed less than 50% of his passes. Now, he did have 5 carries for 21. For me, this is kind of a, toss it up in the air game. I think the Browns, who defensively, I trust them a lot more than I trust the Rams on that side of the football, have some advantages there. But I also trust the Rams offense quite a bit more than this current iteration of Browns football. So it's a real pick-me game here where you flip a coin and you land on something. I think the Browns heading into Los Angeles, maybe they're able to figure out a couple more things the further they go along without Deshaun. Austin, why'd you go with the Rams here, and how much of that really kind of relies on the QB situation right now?
Yeah, I think just with how abysmal that Cleveland was last week, it kind of actually cooled me off. I had taken Cleveland last week with somewhat of a vote of confidence, but moving into this week, just offensively, they have to figure it out. They're going to have to run the football effectively just in order to stay in this one. But once again, something that the Rams or the Browns do have working for them against the Rams is they just haven't been that good defensively this year, and they are susceptible to turnovers. So there is that regard as well. But with how well Kyron Williams had played, I think this is going to be, a dogfight. I think this is going to be a 3-point game. And to me, I'm just taking the Rams. I trust their offense a little bit more, especially after what we had seen from Cleveland last week.
With us deferring in picks here, it feels like an awesome time to remind our viewers that Austin is slaughtering me in pick'em for the 3rd straight year. So if you're putting money down on anything here, you got to ride with the Rams, ride with Austin. That's how you win big time. I wish that I could change my picks live on the fly. I would go about doing that, but I can't do that. It would be a little less fun for the viewers. So you get to hear Glasses Guys picks each week as well. So let's jump into the next one, Austin. Make sure you guys subscribe, by the way, if you haven't already. And wow, what a game do we have here. The 49ers, 8-3. They're on a 3-game winning streak. You and I never sold our stock on them when they had some hiccups earlier in the season, Austin. And because of that, they're paying us off here. They've been playing such good football. But I think right now the epitome of good football is the Philadelphia Eagles. 10-1 record this year. They've scored 310 points. Funny enough, so have the San Francisco 49ers. But the Eagles have faced some really tough teams, and I think step for step have just won games in close battles. They had a really thrilling overtime win this past week. And they've just been a really great football team. 5-game winning streak for them. Both of these teams started the year 5-0 actually before their first losses. So Austin, break this matchup down. This is the game of the week.
Yeah, I mean, Philadelphia has looked not as explosive and as great as we thought they might be able to look this year with the talent that they have on roster. But what they are is they're a gritty team that wins close games. They know how to take care of the football when it comes to the 4th quarter. Those are all formulas for success. San Francisco has been another team that's been really entertaining, had a little bit of a hiccup during the Deebo Samuel absence, but have found it in the right track now. To me, I think this is the game of the week. This should be viewed by every single person in America. And I think the Philadelphia Eagles have a fantastic opportunity to cement themselves as the NFC's elite compared to everyone else, rise to the top, because I think these are the two teams that you very well could see in that title game. Dallas is another team as well that you have to consider in that mix. But two of the top three teams for sure in the NFC. The Eagles, in my opinion, are going to take it. It's a tough place to play in Philly. They're going to have the advantage.
The past 5 weeks have been really monumental for the Eagles. Here are some of their big wins in that stretch. A 14-point win over the Miami Dolphins, who we've already highlighted in this video. They had a narrow win over the Dallas Cowboys, kind of came down to the final couple possessions in that one. They won by 5. They beat the Chiefs in emotional fashion, 21-17 a couple weeks ago. And then, like I referenced earlier, the overtime thrilling win over the Bills this past week. They've just been honestly playing lights out football. And because of that, it's hard to bet against them, even with how great the Niners are and will continue to be. Let's jump now into our next one, Austin. And we got Sunday Night Football here. And I talked about the Chiefs just a second ago. This team, nothing new here. The Chiefs just know how to win football games. And in the AFC West at 8-3, it looks like they have a pretty comfortable lead in that division, 2 games right now over the Denver Broncos. And if they win here this week, it probably puts them in a pretty comfortable position down the stretch of the season as they fight for perhaps the top spot in the AFC. For seeding purposes, Austin, do you think the Chiefs end up being the 1 seed out in the AFC? And how do they go about winning this game against the Packers?
Yeah, I think obviously with Baltimore and Jacksonville all being bunched up at the top with Kansas City, there's a discussion to be had. But at the end of the day, Chiefs always seem to prevail when it comes to seeding. I think they really could, drive it home and finish as that number 1 seed. I think Baltimore's probably the second most likely. Jacksonville, I don't have any trust in finishing towards the top. As much as you want to praise them, you think they're this elite team. Oh, here we go.
I've got to hop in here, guys. I just want to point out one more time. If you guys have been watching, this has been a running joke here on the channel. Austin was just talking about the potential 1 seeds in the AFC, and he said the Jaguars and the Jets name didn't come up. What's going on with that? I just had to pause the video there on that real quick. Austin, keep breaking it down now.
Yeah, so when you actually want to break down the game, though, you look at the Chiefs and Packers. The Packers have found a little bit of a rhythm here. They've been able to win a couple of close games. This has been a positive sign for them. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be too much. Kansas City should come in, take care of business on prime time. The lights are going to be bright here for Jordan Love. He's got to be able to show that he can make some of those big-time throws against a defense that's been super competitive this year. And at the end of the day, though, I have a lot more trust in Kansas City rather than the the Jordan Love-led Green Bay Packers.
Obviously, a lot of love in recent, memory for the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill during his time there. And so much of the attention goes to their offense. Steve Spagnuolo has not only coached this team up over the last few years, but most specifically this year, it's the best the defense has been in really the Andy Reid era, seemingly. Should Steve Spagnuolo be a finalist for some of these head coaching openings that we'll see this year, Austin?
I don't know. I think that teams are a little gun shy on him for whatever reason. I actually just don't think he gets a head coaching gig this year.
Yeah, probably not. But I do think, for me, I've always been fascinated because he's been on the other side of one of the best offensive units in recent memory. So I think it's just an interesting, guy to keep our eyes on this head coaching search and just honestly, just give him some praise too for the job he's done this year. They've just been lights out on the defensive side of the football. So a lot of credit to them and the defensive players there in Kansas City. And Austin, here we are, Monday Night Football. Let's get into it. And it's a great one. The Cincinnati Bengals, who are playing without Joe Burrow, of course, head into Jacksonville to take on, in my opinion, the best team in the AFC and the NFL. Right now, if I had to put money down, the Jaguars are my pick. And the reason why, it doesn't matter what seed they are. They're 5-0 on the road. They can't lose when they go to other teams' ballparks. And because of that, I think that they're going to be a real threat, regardless of what happens down the stretch of the season here. The Jaguars, I think, are going to be a real sleeper underdog. We're going to be doing playoff pick'em as well. That's where I actually have a chance because it's a smaller sample size. And I just need Austin to screw up a couple of times. That's where that's my territory of pick'em. But Austin, the Jaguars here, they wall up the Bengals. Oh. You and I were talking off camera a couple of days ago about, this pick, and we were going through, kind of rationalizing our thoughts. And I said, well, the only thing I'm hung up here is it 21, 24, 35? What's the point margin here? I don't know what the spread's going to say. I don't really care. I'm slamming the over. Jaguars win this one big. Austin, what's your take on this one as you pick the Jaguars yet again this year?
Yeah, I hesitantly here. Now, the interesting thing is the last time you made a bold proclamation on an absolute blowout was that 49ers and Jags game where you had predicted over 3 touchdown margin of victory for Jacksonville. I just want to re-highlight that. I don't think that's going to be the case here. I think Jacksonville, this probably is a 10-point victory for them. They're going to have to get the job done through the air. Pittsburgh actually, surprisingly, last week was able to move the ball effectively. But at the end of the day, Jacksonville needs to get this done, especially with the fact that they're at home. This really pushes them into a good position for playoff seeding later on. So this is a monumental game, not because of the opponent, but rather in terms of being able to get that home field advantage throughout the postseason if they can somehow make it out of the divisional.
Austin here is trying to highlight me being wrong about the Jaguars. Just don't go back and watch the Week 10 Pick'em film. Okay, we don't need to go back to that. Like, all I know is the Jaguars are great, and just like the Niners, 8-3 record. But unlike the Niners, they're going to be moving to 9-3 this week. I've just got so much confidence in this team. As you guys should have a lot of confidence in Austin, and you should show him some support here as well by making sure to leave a like on the video. Thank you all so much for watching. Austin puts in a ton of work, not only on the graphics, but obviously watching all the games, watching all the college film. He does all of the hard work here at Utility Sports Plus. So make sure to show him some love by not only leaving a like and subscribing, but also comment down below your favorite pick of Austin's this week. Let him know how smart he is down in the comment section. He loves reading your guys' thoughts. And we'll catch you guys in the very next Utility Sports Plus video.